This podcast is brought to you by Paramount Plus and by Velena.
The Final Frontier podcast. These are the voyages of Jake Boger and Justin Spur. Our weekly mission to explore memories of Star Trek's strange new worlds, to recall the search for new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has had the spare time to go before. Welcome, everyone. Once again, we are embarking on the voyage that is the Final Frontier. Today's episode, depending on what time you're watching this, it's tonight for us, but for you, it might be today. Because relativity.
Technically for me, it's still late afternoon.
Well, like I said, so for you, it's today. For me, it's tonight.
Time zones are they're a thing.
If we've learned anything from this enterprise, If we've learned anything from this enterprise is that time travel is difficult. Anyway, we're talking about the episode A Taste of Armageddon, which, unlike many Star Trek episodes, this title actually makes sense.
It does. Yeah. This very interesting. It was. Yeah. It was a taste of it. It was.
I must have missed this episode because I had no memory of this whatsoever. And this is a premise. Yeah, this is a premise that's so weird and interesting that I wouldn't forget it.
There's a lot to this episode. There's a lot of fashion. We're going to talk about the fashion choices.
Oh, yes.
I feel like you'd remember the fashion.
Oh, there's many things I would remember about this. But like I said, we'll get into it. This episode takes place between star dates 3192.1 and 3193.0. The in-universe date is still the year 2266. And the original air day for this episode is February 23rd, 1967. So I did check.
Post-Valentine's Day episode.
Yeah, so I did check. We're not super far off from the air day order.
Oh, nice.
Although now, I think now we're slightly more behind than we were. No, we wouldn't be. I keep forgetting because we record in bulk, but we don't release in bulk.
Yeah, no. We go a week at a time.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. But this episode is written by Robert Hamner and Gene L. Kuhn, and directed by our good friend Joseph Pevney. And if I recall, Joseph Pevney episodes tend to be really good. Thus far. Yeah, we're still in the first season, but there's only 3, so we've established a track record.
We have. We've a nice solid through line for sure.
As per our tradition, Justin, would you like to grace everyone with the Paramount Plus description presented by Paramount Plus?
I will. But before I get to it, I do have to make reference to something that happened in the week between episodes that is immediately going to date this episode. As both a movie news guy and one half of a Star Trek guy, how did I miss that a new Star Trek movie just came out?
See, we were going to talk about that when we were telling the viewers about Paramount Plus.
Oh, okay. So we're going to talk about. We're going to get there. Okay. Cool. So, Paramount Plus description brought to you by Paramount Plus. This description references a quote unquote peaceful war. The peaceful is in air quotes. I have questions. Is the peaceful war a reference to the Cold War, or is it just two groups of people who are just very passive aggressive to each other? And I would say both.
I was going to say, technically, isn't that just what a Cold War is?
It's just two really bitchy countries being like, we could talk this out in an afternoon, I think. The diplomatic country version of that is what I'm saying.
I speak in defense of the Cold War, though, because I'm actually kind of proud of us as a species for not everything that happened in the Cold War was good, but you have to look at the alternative. Both sides recognize that if these two countries went to war with each other, it would effectively end the planet. And both sides were mature enough to understand that it's like, listen, we're not going to let you run roughshod and do everything you want to do. But we also don't want to die, so
right. Well, I watched this week. It's funny because you mentioned the not one. I watched Doctor Strangelove and How I Learned to Love
ooh,
the Bomb this week. And just yeah, that the idea that like we all want to live. That movie is funny. The guy being like, look, man, look, no, yeah, I know. We would have told you if we were gonna do this thing. Hey, I'm sorry. Like, yeah, that's how I picture a lot of politics going, where it's just people being like, hey, man, we don't actually want to do this, right? We don't want to do this. You don't want to do this.
yeah, I mean, we want to do this, but we don't want them to do that.
Yeah.
That would be, but this is great. That would be bad.
To me, the Cold War was just like several years of them being like, hey, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And the other side, like, yeah, we're going to do it.
Yeah,
and
we're
like,
gonna
people in the middle being like, they're never going to do it.
we're gonna do it harder.
Right. And then just all like Britain and Canada and all the rest of the world was like, they're never going to do it. And then they didn't.
No, they didn't. The Soviet Union fell. Now it's just Russia.
They probably won't. Yeah, it's true. It's Soviet Union, Russia, different.
They're very different. A lot of people
Different.
have a false equivalency there. No, it was different speed. However, our story begins when the USS Enterprise travels to Eminiar VII in Star Cluster NGC 321. Oh, I just now got what they did there. That's funny.
No, you got explain it to me like I'm 3.
NGC 3, 2, 1.
That's good. That's funny.
That's good. That's funny.
I got
The Enterprise is carrying a passenger, Ambassador Robert Fox, to establish diplomatic relations. And you're laughing. I can already tell this is another dork. This is another administrative dork who.
Oh, he's just such a nerd.
Who? Oh my goodness. I bring this up several times. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that the captain of the starship outranks your.
Okay, I have so many notes making fun of him, and if I do all of them at once, we're gonna pepper them throughout the episode.
Yeah, we're gonna sprinkle them.
We're gonna just douse them. But just overall, this is a note I had later, but I'll just say it up front. This episode does not think highly of diplomats. Like
no,
not even a little bit. And when you put it in the
really.
this episode was so fascinating to me when I put it in another case of when I put it in the context of the 1960s. It's so fascinating. Why does 1960s science fiction have such an ugly view of diplomats? That's so fascinating. But it's just immediately that I think that is the blandest outfit I've ever seen. Was the dress code business boring? What's with the collar? Why the collar? And then I love it when the music is like dun dun dun. Okay, there we go. That's just the start. I've got so many more.
Oh, business is boring. That's so funny.
It's so boring. Like he walks into the room and they've all got bright, colorful uniforms, and I'm like, isn't he supposed to be enticing to other species? Like he's so boring. Like what's with his like brow? I'm sorry, I promised myself I wasn't gonna make fun of his physical appearance.
Pretty obviously, we're trying to make him look like a giant dork.
Were the weird like bags under his eyes? Was that just like his face, or like was that like makeup? Do you think?
Well, no, as somebody who has bags under his eyes, it's probably just his face.
Just his face? Yeah, he looked tired and angry and.
Well, he's
such a dork. He's just such a dork.
He's got so many busy days diplomating and just being a dumb.
He's just again, another note for I put in later, but again, I mentioned it now. Every scene with him, the music wants you to think he's sinister.
Yeah, that's true. And the thing is, I never got a sinister vibe from him. I got an idiot vibe from him. You're right. The music cues are there.
It wants you to feel like he's sinister, but he's such a dork that you're like, why isn't Scotty hitting him? Like Scotty should hit him.
Well,
feels like Scotty should hit him.
Incompetence can be more dangerous.
That's exactly.
It can be a lot more dangerous, and that's why we have manslaughter as a legal charge.
Nothing worse than like weaponized incompetence, man.
Little is known about Eminiar VII beyond the fact that they have been at war with a neighboring planet, Vendikar.
I was just gonna say, so is that like the space Hatfields and the space McCoys, and then obviously is that a reference people are gonna get? Sorry,
I get it, except the terrestrial Hatfields and the terrestrial McCoys did a lot of shooting, at each other. Real shooting.
That is true. That is fair. That is a fair retort.
That spanned generations. But I appreciate the Hatfields and McCoys reference.
Thank you.
I blanked on the name for just a split second there.
I don't know why I know that. I just know that.
Well, history made a series about it.
Did it?
That's how I found out about it.
Oh, fair. Yeah, I've read about them before. Like, if you were to ask me offhand what their exact beef was, I just know that they hated each other. That's like my shorthand for like families who feud.
If I remember correctly, I think it started over a pig.
Was it over a pig?
It was okay. Okay, a pig was involved at one point. I don't know if it started with the pig. It may have started over a relationship, but I do not remember. So, Editor Jake,
somebody
enlighten us.
Editor Jake, it's
pig or lady?
Hey, Editor Jake here. It was the pig.
You being the American would know better than I. Are there families like still around?
Don't know.
Like, I mean, that'd be Editor Jake. When you're doing that bit earlier where you put in the bit, maybe put in a follow-up bit where you say whether or not maybe there's still family members around or if they killed each other.
Hi, Editor Jake here for the second bit. Yes, members of both the Hatfield and McCoy families are still alive today. In fact, members of both families met in 2003, signing a truce, officially ending the feud.
What if Leonard McCoy is a descendant of the McCoys?
My god!
Because here's the thing:
I didn't even put that together.
The characters from Georgia.
Huh.
I think their feud was further north. I think they were like Kentucky or Tennessee. But I mean, over the course of time, it's not that far in a galaxy. Tennessee to Georgia, not that far.
I'm just right. I mean, as this episode goes on, I found a more probably at the time relevant like comparison or allegory, but we'll get there. Sorry, I cut you off. You were mid-story.
Oh, you're good. Nearing Eminiar VII, the Enterprise receives a message from the planet warning them not to approach, but Ambassador Fox orders Captain Kirk to proceed. And it's at this point in the episode that I said out loud to myself, what part of under no circumstances did you not understand?
Right? Like, it's just weird that this guy just there's all these episodes where these pencil pushing nerds walk out and they're like, I'm in charge. I'm like, I just wish there was an episode where like a superior actually also like, why, if he is indeed in charge, Kirk sure doesn't seem to know about that. So I'd like a scene where Kirk was like briefed on like, yeah, man, we know he's a nerd, but just three guys who don't read the briefings say he's got to be here, you know?
Yeah, but that's my thing. So throughout this entire episode, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm pretty sure that an ambassador does not outrank a captain of a starship. Especially on the starship. Maybe on the planet's surface, he might have a little bit more leverage, but on the ship, I'm pretty sure that Captain Kirk's word is law, unless directly ordered to do something by an admiral. And even then, Kirk can still be like, yeah, that's stupid, and for the safety of my ship, I'm not doing it.
I think the implication was that it was for that mission because it was a diplomatic mission. He was like the head of the mission, but the command structure of the Enterprise has never functioned that way before. Other than that's actually not completely true because I'm so bad with the episode titles. The one with the previous pencil pushing nerd, he was technically in charge there. He was the ticking clock. So like
the Galileo 7. Yep.
Yeah. So there has been context where total geeks have power over Kirk.
The other thing that made me laugh during this whole thing is I just came up with this slogan based on how hard this pencil neck nerd is just pushing so hard. It's like, you will establish diplomatic relations. Resistance is futile. It's like, no, it's very much like Manifest Destiny American diplomatic relations. It's like, no, you will give us that land.
We're gonna give you freedom whether you want it or not.
It looks like they sure could use some freedom.
You're gonna shove some of that freedom right down your throat.
Right
yum. Eat up that freedom.
And I would just like to say for the YouTube audience, that is an oversimplistic interpretation of historical events. I'm aware we did it for comedy.
I mean, yes. I mean, from as the outside perspective, the Canadian, that really does look like that's just America's foreign policy, which is why I feel comfortable saying it as a joke.
But anyway, that's getting a little too real world here.
Man, this episode felt weirdly just to circle back around here. did feel oddly relevant for some reason.
Well, that's because history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Kirk, Spock, and additional security personnel beam down to the planet, where they are met by representatives Mia 3 and Anan 7. So to quote you, my friend, Kirk has a type.
Kirk has okay. See, that the city set messed with my brain because like it was hard to tell what was like set and what was painted background, and I thought that was good. It was very convincing.
It was very good. It was
very
good.
bright and very large. They kind of get lost in it, but it looks convincing. And then Kirk, man, this was a note I wrote today when I rewatched it, which was Kirk, man, come on. Keep it in your pants for like 5 seconds. Like he gets there and he's immediately flirting. I'm like, come on, you couldn't have given it like 15 minutes.
Well, to be fair, he wasn't expecting hotties down there.
I mean, that is true. He was expecting it to just be a bunch of guys.
Barbara Babcock, though, who plays Mia 3, also played Philana in the episode Plato's Stepchildren, so you'll see her in the next season. Her voice was also used for Trelane's mother in The Squire of Gothos.
Oh, really? Hey, man, loving it when people come back. That's fun. I like that.
Also, her voice is used for the Beta 5 computer Isis the cat. Oh, I'm sorry, the Beta 5 computer and Isis the cat in the episode Assignment Earth, which is also in the next season. And Lockskeen in the Tholian Web, also in season 2. And the Zetarians in the Lights of Zatar in season 3. So we will see and hear Barbara Babcock some more coming up.
So, I forgot to mention introducing the people on this planet. I've got a series of notes that I feel are fairly important. Which is
they have a series of headgear. Which
okay. First note: sashes for everyone. Everyone gets a sash.
Everyone gets a sash.
You got to explain how the mechanics of the sashes work. Okay. So in order to get a red sash, you have to get a certain amount of stripes. And then that allows you to get an upgrade to a green sash, which then eventually you upgrade to a blue sash. And then obviously on the second watch through, I noticed the stupid hats. How did I miss the stupid hats?
Well, you were too preoccupied with sashes.
By the mechanics of how the sashes work. Yeah, I completely missed the hats. The weird, how I described as shower cap looking hats.
So another fun casting note, though, is William Shatner and David Apatosh. I'm guessing his name might be Greek. I don't know. If I'm mispronouncing your name, sir, I apologize, even though you may or may not be with us. I apologize nonetheless if I'm mispronouncing your name. But the actor who plays Anan 7, they appeared together 8 years earlier in the Brothers Karamazov film made in 1958. Captain Kirk played Alexei Karamazov, and David, whose name I will not attempt to pronounce again, played Captain Snirganyov. Russian's hard.
No. Hey, man, kudos to you to try. I respect it.
Captain Sneg. He played Captain Sneg.
I wouldn't have even tried. I would have been like Captain S.
Snegiryov.
Oh, okay, that sounds about.
There's like Snegiryov. I can pronounce Karamazov.
Snigernov?
Sure, it makes me.
I'm just guessing. I'm not seeing what it looks like when it's spelled. So I'm just taking a guess.
It makes me think of Snarf from the. Snarf. Yeah, maybe that's his name. Maybe that's Snarf's name in the Russian dub.
Snarf.
Yeah.
So William Shatner played one of them guys, huh?
The thing is, I can see William Shatner playing Alexei, and now I kind of want to watch the movie.
I love old school 1950s. Wow, yeah, that would have been a real young William Shatner then.
Oh yeah, that'll be something to see. I'm gonna look that up.
Take the advice of an experienced man. Marry the girl, and your problems are over.
He doesn't love Katya.
A mere trifle, a minor matter. This is marriage, not romance.
During a supposed attack by Vindicar, Anan 7 explains that the war is conducted as a computer simulation and that the Enterprise has been destroyed, in air quotes, in the attack. The two planets have a treaty, according to which they must kill the, quote, victims of every simulated attack. So it's like a video game, except when you die in the game, you die in real life. I feel like that movie's been made several times.
Yes. That the way you're describing it, that sounds like Ender's Game. The end of Ender's Game, if you've ever read that book.
It also sounds like Jumanji. Not the original. Well, I guess the original one, too, but in video game form. the new ones, which I gotta say, like we're so not talking, we're derailing a bit here, but I gotta say, I love those movies.
Those
The
movies
ones
are
they remade with The Rock and Jack Black, they're genuinely funny.
Anytime anyone wants to, I think did we put in an edit from that movie in one of the episodes? I feel like we did.
Yeah. There's a running gag that don't cry, don't cry, don't cry,
don't cry, don't cry, don't cry.
Which, by the way,
movie,
you'll appreciate this, Justin. I have a folder in my Final Frontier files that is called running gags.
Yes,
because we have enough that it now necessitates a folder to make my life easier.
That makes me very happy. But that movie is my case for when anyone is ever like The Rock is a bad actor. That movie is my case study for why he's a good actor. He's just a lazy actor, because that movie is incredible because he's playing that movie and the second one are incredible because he plays multiple characters playing The Rock. Like in the second one, he's just Danny DeVito for part of that movie. And then he goes back to being the kid again, and they're distinctly different characters, but they're The Rock. That and Pain and Gain are my two movies where I'm like, no, The Rock is a good actor. You guys just aren't watching him in the right stuff.
Also, that's fair.
Snitch is also funny because it has that scene where he has to fight all the guys who are smaller than him and pretend like he's losing a fight. That's very funny.
So I actually had, on a serious note, there's a moment there's a line that Spock says,
"I do not approve. I understand."
The phrase "approve versus understand" is basically my political philosophy.
Yes, I completely. I was mid note on that, but I was like, yeah, it was like. It reminded me of a similar idea that I've really learned to embrace of like criticism is not condemnation. Like this is a kind of idea of like, yeah, you can understand something, you can get the point, but you can not.
It's also not approval though. Like
it's also not approval. No, yeah, I get.
Yeah, because it's like it's like no, there's a great many things politically that I understand the thought. I'm not going to say logic, but I understand the thought process behind it.
On paper,
it's still wrong, but I understand how someone could get there.
Right.
But with correct information, one ought reform their opinion. Much like any sane person looking at this situation looks at it and goes, "This is stupid."
Right. Well, so I have a note on this entire situation, which is this sounds like the plot to a bad YA novel. It's giving me like real Hunger Games vibes. Like somewhere there's a love triangle with the guy who runs the disintegrator machine and his seemingly platonic female friend who is selected but fails to report, and he hides her to keep her safe.
Spoiler alert for the episode you're watching right now. Spoiler alert, that female platonic friend is selected actually, and thanks to the actions of Kirk and company,
right.
Yeah, he does not get a chance to hide her. So again, this may very well have played out the same way, just because of love instead of espionage.
All I'm saying is in like this movie came out. If this episode was a movie and it came out in like 2024, the character would probably be played by Jennifer Lawrence. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Or someone. Sydney Sweeney, someone young and attractive looking.
She would have an accent for some reason.
She would have an accent for some reason, yeah. She'd have an accent for some reason.
I have another note that said, this is so weird and interesting, but it would never happen. Because, okay, here's how you win this war, right? Because you cheat. You attack your enemy on their computer and you wipe out everyone on their side so that they all have to die. And then when they retaliate, you just don't die.
Yeah. We're gonna get to it. I have a number of similarly thought out holes to poke in this premise because, like, there's so many stopping points in this that just don't make any sense. I took several guesses at twists that were more interesting than how this episode ended. It was very bizarre.
Yeah, because this episode ends in like and again, this is another instance where you have to remind yourself, this is 1967. It's not a cliche yet. This is a fresh and original idea.
Yeah, it's not so much that it's we'll get there. It's not so much that it's a cliche that I have an issue with in this instance. It's just like, there's lots of leaps, kind of for me, leaps in logic where I'm like, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Right. Well, but it's kind of like I can't remember where I saw this bit, but it's like you have to remember that there was a period in history where nobody had switched sides yet.
Right.
In a war. So the first time that happens, they would have been like, "Hey, but you were," and then after that, everybody was like, "Oh, okay, people can lie."
True.
But
so, is this episode an allegory for? Because I'm like, okay, time and place. Is this episode an allegory for the Cold War? Because it just kind of feels like it is.
Yes and no. So according to Star Trek writer David Gerrold, or David Gerald, again, if I'm mispronouncing your name, I apologize. The computer tallies of war dead in this episode was a statement about the Vietnam War deaths that began to be registered on nightly newscasts in 1967. So this was something they had just started doing that year.
So this is a commentary on Vietnam?
Yeah, but the Vietnam is part of the Cold War as a broader sense.
Okay. See, I think we've talked about.
I would say it's more directly commentary on the Vietnam War, but that is part of the. It's all part about kicking the commies in the pants. Because the whole thing.
Because the guy whose name I'm not going to attempt to say, the character, he says he has a speech about how if we actually go to war, each side will fight each other, and that will be the end of everything. That is so Cold War coded to me.
Yeah, but that's one of those things where if you think about it more than 2 seconds, because here's the difference between this episode's concept and the actual Cold War. In the Cold War, people died, but like people didn't die. It wasn't like it wasn't like the USSR and the United States agreed in metaphorical deaths becoming actual deaths. Because at that point, wouldn't you just computer assassinate your enemy's leader? What are the rules of calculations of casualties? Are these D&D rules where it just depends on your dice roll as to how many people die?
If this were in the YA, you'd find out that there's actually like a leader who's been like secretly manipulating it the whole time, and that's twist. The computer doesn't actually do it. It's a person that's doing it, and it's killing people that it deems it's eugenics. It would be a eugenics thing. It's always a eugenics thing.
Oh yeah, if they made this today, absolutely. When they remake it for Strange New Worlds, that's what they're going to do.
It's going to be eugenics. It's always eugenics.
Because that seems to be, having not seen it yet, but the number of notes I've seen were like, this episode is retold in Strange New Worlds, where Captain Pike gets to be the hero instead of Captain Kirk. That's totally how they're going to do it.
Is Strange New Worlds in another universe then?
It is. It didn't start out that way, but it has been confirmed that it is an alternate timeline.
Because I was going to say, if they're doing all these episodes, like I don't have an issue with, hey, we're doing it again. That drives Jordan crazy. That doesn't bother me. As long as you do the thing in a way that's interesting, I'm cool with doing the thing again. But like my question to that would be, how come Spock doesn't remember any of this bullshit if he's been through it before?
Well, yeah, that's pretty much the point. And actually, based on what I read, Paramount basically, I'm not quoting them because I don't know, but this is based on things that I read. Paramount basically acknowledged that all the new Trek is set in an alternate reality because they realized they were contradicting their own canon so much that they just came out and said, because at one point they were vehemently saying, no, this is all in the prime timeline. And then it's like, yeah, but no.
Like, because with Spock, I think they established a long enough timeline of him being on the ship with not whatever ship he was on with Pike. Was it the Enterprise?
Yes.
Yeah, on being on the Enterprise with Pike, that like you can do anything. Like you can do anything, and then you could just chalk it up to being like, oh yeah, that's just an adventure he went on. That why would he mention that to Kirk? And then that establishes, oh, that's why he's so smart. He'd been through a lot of stuff. Like that would make sense. But to do stuff you've done before, it's why I can't stand prequels. Like I just
it's like remaking the episode Balance of Terror when it's established in the episode Balance of Terror that people from the Federation and the Romulan Empire had never seen each other before. But in this episode, they do, and it predates the original series because Captain Pike is still captain of a starship.
Right.
So it flies in the face of the canon. And here's the thing. Multiverse theory has pretty much eliminated the need for canon, but within that same universe, canon still exists.
Right. And just like, from my thing with Star Trek, it's like, hey man, if you want to do a prequel that's maybe like the prequel to the original show, because technically the movies didn't end up being a prequel, I'm for that. But like, yeah, do a if you want to do a remake of the original show with new actors, I'm not against that. And then you can do updated 21st century versions of.
You know what, Paramount? I'm just hey, here's the thing. I'm just saying.
Because I like the guy who plays Spock.
No. Here's the thing. Paramount. Hear me out here. At this point, what have you got to lose? Give us the Night Shift series to prove our worth, and then let us make the serious remake of the original series where we redo all the episodes. We won't deviate from canon, but we might tweak a couple things, like all these dorks not having as much power as they have in the original.
Yeah.
Making some things like characters like Gary Mitchell will be featured before. And actually, what I would love to do is start the series prior to where it started in the original series, so that we can establish characters like Gary Mitchell, like the guy that pretended to be dead in the last episode.
Oh yeah. We build them, we seed them earlier in the series. I do like that. Yeah. Like I would have the one lieutenant who kept coming back there. Yeah, I would have him come in a bunch. Also, I would allow. There's a show on Netflix that gets one F. Oh, I think it was Lucifer. They got one F-bomb per season. I would allow them one F-bomb, and I would allow the character that I was going to give it to. I would allow them to decide when they were going to do it whenever they wanted. That way, it was random. Keep them on their toes. Like it's not going to be scripted. It's going to be entirely improv. They're allowed to say it whenever they want, but they get one.
I love the game that Billy Boyd and oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. He played Merry in the Lord of the Rings. Billy Boyd played Pippin.
Dominic something.
Yeah, it's Dominic's.
Hi, I'm Dominic Monaghan.
They sort of, on an interview or a podcast or something, they were like, here's the thing. Lord of the Rings is PG-13, and technically, per MPA guidelines, they get one F-bomb per film. Where would you put that? Where would you put and there's so many in every movie. There's so many great moments that would work.
My favorite, I love that. That's a piece of knowledge that I actually do know. But my favorite use of that is in Be Cool, where he's like, he goes through and explains that, you're only allowed one F-bomb per PG-13 movie, and he's like, oh, that's stupid. I used it. Yeah, that's
we censor ours, so
yeah, we censor ours. Yeah.
See, they don't know if you're saying fuck or flip. They don't know.
Flip. Yeah. That's one weird random piece of knowledge.
Well, I guess if editor Jake is being honest, they know if you're saying fuck or flip. But if he chose to censor the whole thing, like put a but yeah, so
what you're saying is like you said.
And honestly, after that, I just couldn't look at him the same way again.
I'm sorry. I felt you needed to know. We couldn't proceed forward with this episode without you knowing the thing I just said.
It's times like this I wish I could slingshot around the sun and travel back to the past.
Oh,
man. Then I would still remember, even if I changed it, I would still remember it, because that future now becomes my past.
But also, you'd still be on a spaceship in space, and that's pretty rad.
That is pretty rad. After all this, the crew are therefore expected to report to Eminiar's disintegration chambers for execution. And now it's time, Justin, to tell everyone about the absolute awesomeness that is Paramount Plus.
I mean, this show is literally brought to you by Paramount Plus.
It's literally brought to you by Paramount Plus.
It's the only way I remember which episode I'm on, because otherwise, I'm a busy guy. I don't remember every episode I'm on. But because it's on Paramount Plus, it's easily there when I go back to it. I don't have to remember.
But see, here's the thing, everybody. So I've always had a very loving relationship with Paramount. I've never kissed it or anything, but there's a lot of love shared because. And then when I found out that they were coming out with Paramount Plus, they were morphing the old CBS All Access streaming app, which is fine, but Paramount Plus, I mean, that just has a ring to it. It's a really underrated streaming app. I highly recommend it because you get all of Paramount's library, including every single piece of Star Trek, everything that's ever made that's Star Trek related, including the latest movie that honestly seemed to come out of nowhere because I thought it was going to be a series. We're first talking about Section 31. That just came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that completely slipped by me. As again, the movie news guy and one half of the Star Trek guy, I cannot believe I missed that, especially because it has Michelle Yeoh in it. And I'm like, I've discovered this last week that I quite like her.
And here's the best part, Justin. Where is the only place you can watch Section 31?
I mean, Paramount Plus.
It's
I'm
Paramount
pretty sure
Plus.
it's a Paramount Plus exclusive.
It is, as is all Star Trek content these days, because I believe all the new series are exclusively available on Paramount Plus, nowhere else.
I mean, I know that Picard was. That was a Paramount Plus exclusive show.
Yes, I believe they all are now. But Justin, here's the best part. So you should absolutely get Paramount Plus because here's the other thing. It's actually really affordable. It's not an expensive service. And the best part is if you use our link in the description to sign up, you get 7 days for free to try it out. But I'm telling you right now, if you try it, you're going to want to keep it. And it's absolutely worth it.
It is. And also, well, I mean, to be fair, with my Paramount Plus, the other cool thing is you can attach it to, I use it through Amazon Prime, which is also cool. Like, that's really neat. I don't have to like have a separate, like with Netflix, you have to have a separate streaming service. I can switch over to my Amazon Prime stuff. Or if I'm going to be doing my Star Trek episodes, I can just quickly pop in and do my Paramount Plus. It's really handy. It's really, really cool.
Well, not to mention
their catalog is ever growing.
Yeah, not to mention other hit shows, and then now there's even more live sports events coming to it. So definitely check out Paramount Plus today. You will not be sorry. And plus, then you can watch Star Trek along with us. So you can watch the episode with us and then see our commentary on it. So you'll know what we're talking about. And you can join in the discussion, the old, live chat or comments section.
Exactly. I do have to do a special shout out though. My favorite thing about Paramount Plus, if you've ever seen them, is those television ads where it's all of the characters climbing up the Paramount Plus mountain and the mountain. And there's a really funny one where Patrick Stewart, hey, it's Star Trek related. Patrick Stewart spikes the character, hey Arnold, and he sings what's the song? Take Me Higher by Creed. And it's genuinely one of the funniest things. It's just him going, and we'll take you higher. It's so funny. Like, oh, they're so funny. They're genuinely funny ads.
It's good stuff.
You might be able to watch on Paramount Plus. I don't know, but I had to mention them. They're very funny.
I'm sure you'll see it. But sign up to Paramount Plus today. You'll love it.
You will love it. That is a final frontier guarantee.
It'll be a plus to your life.
And it will be Paramount that you use our link.
I see what you did there.
Paramount to use our link to sign up for Paramount Plus. There, I did it. We got there in the end.
Nailed
the ad spot.
Wordplay. Spock telepathically plants a suggestion in their jailer's mind, allowing them to escape. So Spock can mind meld through walls now?
Okay. I'm so glad that you had a note there. Which is just what the speaking of cursing, I just have a note that's what the explicitive did Spock just do.
Yeah, this is
that seems like a really convenient ability I don't think they've established before.
And I don't think they ever do again. Now I will say there's an episode coming up where Spock achieves a mind meld without touching the thing.
Is that what he did to that guard? Is that a mind meld?
I think technically they don't expressly call it that, if I'm remembering correctly. But this is something, kids, that we refer to as lazy writing.
Lazy writing.
The other note I have is run. That consensual death chamber might kill us when it's exploding.
Yeah, so much. I get another note.
I found that so stupid. I found that so stupid.
I mean, I also did because so much for non-interference. Am I right?
To be fair, I've never... Okay, so I think the Prime Directive is important. However, when people are dying, I think you can make a case to ignore the Prime Directive. Especially when the people who are dying are you and your crew.
Also fair enough. Although these people are... I don't want to say very, very stupid, but they're very, very stupid.
Well, I mean, as case in point is the fact that the people who are in line to be killed run away from a fire.
I mean, yeah, there's just a lot of Captain Kirk outsmarts these people with minimal effort. They really aren't on his intellectual level.
No, there's a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh logic happening in this episode.
Yeah. That is an interesting way to put it, but yeah.
I mean, just the super dumbing down because children are watching and you have to spell it out for them slowly just to make sure they get it.
Yeah.
People who are supposedly the best in the world at this said game that are still caught off guard by the concept of a trap card. That kind of logic.
Well, the bad guy, the main bad guy of this episode, okay, we have to get to Scotty and him trying to fool Scotty, because I have a few notes on that, because we got to talk about how dumb this guy is. He's so dumb, Jake. He's so dumb. Like, he's got to stress that enough.
Yeah, he and the diplomat are peas in a pod for sure. Like
oh my goodness.
Anon 7 uses a voice duplicator to imitate Kirk's voice and order the crew to transport down. The entire crew. It's an important note that he orders the entire crew to beam down.
Yep.
And that they will send up people to run the ship while they're down there.
Right? Well, it's just like, good on Scotty for just immediately seeing red flags. Kirk was very wise to leave him in charge. Just Scotty being like, no, that's just none of that seems right. Captain Kirk would literally never say that. Check the voice recording. Stupid.
The synopsis even says Scotty, suspicious, has the ship's computer analyze the message and confirms that it is a fake.
Like, it's not even like there's a scene where maybe they question it. Like, in the scene, immediately he's like, no. Yeah. And I started to type out a note of being like, oh, how is he replicating Kirk's voice? And then Scotty immediately answered my question within like the next 10 seconds. I was like, oh, okay, delete the note then. And just the way he's handling this, though, and this is a sort of a theme throughout the episode, he could be captain if he wanted to. Like, he's handling this so calmly and like methodically. Like, does he become captain later on, or is he always just engineering?
No, Scotty does achieve the rank of captain. What I can't remember is if he actually captains a ship, or I cannot remember that, but he does eventually get promoted. But the note I had, because this is wild, again, 1967. This is an AI voice changer before they had AI voice changers.
True.
This is something we can totally do now, as demonstrated by right now.
My voice is now going to sound like Rick from Rick and Morty.
And I did that with a click of a button.
Oh, I mean, yeah. See, I was going to do a reference too, but I mean, I'm sure you could find an equally fun character.
But yeah. I mean, just making yourself sound like a woman. You did in one episode where you made yourself sound like a woman. Like
that is, and it sounds believable. Or there was one I did that kind of made me sound like, I'm going to mess up his name. Lance Reddick. He's does one of my favorite sketches, Toys Are Me, which I highly recommend checking out. But there was a voice match that just made me sound like he was like an older black gentleman. Made me sound like him. Like, yeah, they exist now, and they can make you sound like anyone. It's wild.
And they're really good. Like, I use them. I've said this before, but I use an AI voice changer at the beginning of every podcast that I edit. The sponsorship segment at the very beginning, that's my voice. Yeah. That's just been altered. Oh, it's funny. The theme of this episode is we talk about something right before we address it in our outline. While Scotty was established as third in command in the episode The Return of the Archons, this is the first on-camera time that Kirk formally turns the ship over to him. It also establishes that McCoy is not an officer in that chain of command, which we've speculated before, because even though he and Scotty have the same rank at this point, McCoy being chief surgeon on the ship you would not want him out of sickbay.
No, and to be fair, even he's like, no, I don't. This is all you, man.
It's a different skill set.
But like, just how easily Scotty just like jumped into it I was like, oh, that's impressive.
Well, and then there's a theme to Kirk's subordinate commanders, like people in the chain of command. Both Spock and Scotty, they don't want to be captain.
No,
and that's why they're good at it.
I just love Scotty in this episode. I love his straightforward approach to stuff, because yeah, man, it took him no time to suss out that this is bull malarkey.
Bull malarkey. That makes it an Irish bull.
That it does.
Scotty orders the shields raised, which he does in the nick of time. When the crew fails to transport down, Eminiar fires upon them, but the attack is deflected by the shields. And all I have to say to that is, attaboy, Scotty.
Right?
I'm sorry, that gets you a medal, in my opinion, or some kind of commendation.
Right?
you got to think that Kirk put in for at least like
maybe that's why he
a
made Captain.
commendation. Eventually, yeah. This is wild. I like was grinning ear to ear when I read this fun fact, and I have to share it with you all. Scotty's refusal to lower the shields against orders is based on an actual story from James Doohan's military service.
Really?
As a lieutenant in the Royal Canadian Artillery, he was threatened with court-martial for real for saying, "No, sir, I will not," to a visiting colonel when he realized when a training exercise order would entail blowing the heads off of some of his own men. Fortunately, his immediate superiors backed him up, and like the fictional character here, he was eventually promoted to captain. It probably explains why that scene was acted so well by James Doohan, because he was probably just repeating what he said in real life, just in a Scottish accent, because for those who don't know, James Doohan is Canadian, not Scottish. But
interesting. I did not know that, actually.
It's jarring the first time you hear him speak normally.
But of course, when I auditioned for Star Trek, I did 8 different accents for them. And the reason that I auditioned is that I had auditioned for a show before, about 2 weeks before, and didn't get that job. But the director of that called me and said, "Jimmy, would you come and do some accents for these Star Trek people?"
So yeah, your name will figure prominently in my report. It's such a bureaucrat's idea of a threat.
Well, to be fair, it's going to feature prominently in Kirk's report too, for vastly different reasons.
Vastly different reasons. So yeah, in regard, just go back real quickly to Spock mind melding with the guy from a distance. When the guy walked in, Kirk gave him the double Kirk karate chop. Where he was like, bam, bam. That guy took 2.
You got to double tap.
Extra strong.
He double tap.
He double tapped that man. Pam, pam. We at the part where he blows up the disintegration machine. We did that, right?
That was the line about run. The consensual death chamber might kill us while it's on fire.
Right. So I do have notes about that. Yeah, I had questioned maybe that with the involvement of the computer, but I was like, to be fair, this may be me being ahead of this show's time. Was the question of, is the disintegration machine like actually killing people, or is it maybe like breaking them down and like putting them into the computer? Kind of maybe that was going to be the twist.
I thought initially that it was actually just taking them somewhere, but spoiler alert, it turns out that it is actually disintegrating them.
But when they run into the woman and the blonde trying to convince her not to disintegrate herself, I just love how he's like, I have to go in there, and he's like, "No, you're not." And she's like, "I'm going in there." "No, you're not." "All right then." She didn't put up much of a fight, is what I'm saying.
Well, here's the thing. How do they have time to fight their virtual war? Because it seems like disintegrating people one at a time like this is really inefficient. Like a bomb would be much more efficient, and
right. I don't want to say what would be more efficient, but I think we both know what would.
I mean, a bigger disintegration chamber for
much larger disintegration chamber would probably be more efficient. One at a time does seem like.
Yeah, not only that seems cruel, because now you have to wait in line to die. That's just
right.
That's just rubbing salt in the wound. Like,
I mean, fair. These people are so conditioned to do it, though. I gotta go in there.
It's just this is why I find the whole thing just so unbelievable, because you're telling me in 500 years no dude was like, nah.
I'm not going in there. My favorite bit is when they the Spock gets the guy with the Vulcan nerve pinch, and he's like, "I've noticed that there's a spider on your shoulder," and then he gives him that, and I'm like, did Spock just do a made you look with that guy? That just seemed like an unnecessary extra step. He could have just been like, why the quippy joke, Spock? Why did you just need to like let him know that you were assaulting him, or what was the deal?
See, the thing is, Vulcans actually have emotions; they just bury them, and Spock sometimes just can't help himself.
Yeah, his emotions come out in odd, quippy one-liners,
and not the occasional, the fairly common smile,
the very, very, very rare smile, and also just like
sass,
a weird cut. Yeah, okay, yeah, sass is. I was gonna say weird cutting remarks, but that works too.
Yeah, we've established that Spock is sassy.
He's sassy. Also, I noticed that this probably is the first time that Scotty has done the captain's log.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was neat. And then, yeah, just another note on how every one of this guy's lines is followed by weirdly sinister music.
Those are my orders.
Yes, but speaking of, Anon 7 then contacts the Enterprise, claiming that the attack was due to a malfunction. Ambassador Fox, deciding to believe Anon, beams down and is taken to a disintegration chamber immediately, where Spock and the security officers rescue him. My first note was this ambassador is an idiot.
Okay. First of all, mealy mouthed gentleman. I don't know what that insult is, but I enjoyed it very much. Every one of his weird Scottish insults, I've got a couple notes on them. I thought they were funny. Yeah, Kirk is oddly trusting of a man who has repeatedly betrayed him. And then it was Kirk was born on a day, just not yesterday.
No, hang on. I have to correct your statement. Kirk will have been born on a day, just not yesterday.
Just not yesterday. Yeah, there's a shame that Jake doesn't watch The Simpsons because monorail. There's a monorail. I thought was funny. Oh, when they beam down. Okay, now caught up. He beamed down a note of who the fuck is this guy? Who the guy with the ambassador? Who the fuck is this guy? And on the one
his
hand,
muscle.
Yeah, his muscle. Now, and finally, on the one hand, while I do feel a bit bad for him, on the other hand, the look on his stupid smug face is priceless. And
I don't feel bad for him at all. I don't feel bad for him because that's okay. This is like
you can't do this to me.
No, but here's the thing. I don't wish harm on anyone. However, natural selection is the thing, and we see it every day. Like those of you that thought it was a good idea for any reason to put a Tide Pod and ingest it in your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. We had a word for that. We called them Darwin. I mean, apparently though, natural selection isn't a thing because on this show, on this planet, kind of proves that it's not because these people are so dumb. How did they survive 500? How have they not wiped each other out? I don't understand it. They're so dumb.
Mutually assured stupidity?
I guess.
Well, here's the thing: if you disintegrate anyone who's killed in the fake bombs, eventually you'll just kill all the smart people.
I mean, idiocracy proves that.
And how Kirk confronts Anon 7, but is overpowered by his guards and taken to an Eminian council chamber, the Eminian council chamber. And honestly, what's a pretty good choreographed fight scene?
Yeah, that's where I got the note. He's giving him the old right cross, and pow, right in the kisser.
Kerpow. Honestly,
Kerpow.
It's a good fight scene because Kirk is
really
believably overpowered.
Yeah. I appreciated that he lost. Like, it's nice whenever. My thing. This is my. I will say it does. I like it when your heroes lose, but it can teeter over into being too much. Like, there's a season of, I don't know if you watch Arrow, but there's a season of Arrow. I can't stand Damien Dark because he never loses. And that's like narratively frustrating. Like, you want to see the bad guys lose, especially when it's a recurring bad guy. You want to see him lose like every second or third time. Like when they win every time. So yeah, it's nice with the same deal with the heroes where it's like, it's nice when they lose every once in a while. Like, yeah, you want them to win 9 out of 10 times, but 10th time you like to see him get it.
Well, here's the funny thing, because that idea lives in pro wrestling because funny thing happens when you have a heel or a bad guy that wins all the time, eventually the crowd starts to like them.
Right. And usually that's when they become a face.
I was going to say, right? And then they're no longer a heel. You might still book them as a heel, but the crowd's cheering for them at that point.
I know example. I'm flailing. Can't think of one off the top of my head, but I do know what you're talking about. There's a particular, isn't that like the deal with John Cena? Like they've
No, he was kind of the opposite. He was very much a babyface, and then he was winning so much that certain wrestling fans.
Oh, who am I thinking? I know there's an example of what you're talking about.
Stone Cold.
Was that it? Where they tried to make him a heel? Because I know of which.
No. Stone Cold was initially in the early stages. He was being booked as a heel, but then through a combination of winning and delivering some of the best promos in pro wrestling history, The Rock started out the same way. The Rock was The Rock was booked as a face. Audience didn't like it, so then they put him in the Nation of Domination and booked him as a heel, and then people started liking what he was doing, so then he was no longer a heel, and then they had to book him as a babyface, but then people got sick of that, so he started acting like a heel, even though he was a babyface, and that's why pro wrestling doesn't make sense anymore.
I mean, well, yeah, I know that there was that run where he was supposed to be, and then he didn't that end with him becoming a heel again? Because that's where he fought isn't that where he fought because I've watched this fight. It's a really that match. It's a really good match. The final one between him and Steve Austin, where they drag each other around the arena for the entire thing, and it's really good. Wasn't he a heel for that? That was like the end of his that run.
Yes, he was.
See, I know my pro wrestling history.
Well, now, speaking of things that are awesome, it's time for us to tell you about one of our other great sponsors, our friends from Velena.
Ah, I do like those friends at Velena.
Forsan Records is proud to introduce the newest album from Velena, including the singles Cut Me to the Quick, and Remedy. Velena, Save Me From Myself, available now wherever you get your music.
We're going back, Kirk is saving this planet from itself,
Yes,
slowly but surely.
He is, in his I sound like a total psychopath kind of way.
When Anon 7 opens a channel to the Enterprise, Kirk orders Scotty to execute General Order 24 before being cut off. Kirk explains that he has ordered the ship to destroy everything on the planet within 2 hours. Panic then ensues, allowing Kirk to disarm the guards. Spock arrives, and they destroy the war simulation computers. Anon 7, horrified, protests that the real war will inevitably follow. But Kirk points out that Vindikar is no doubt just as horrified, and that both sides now have an incentive to make peace. Well, my note just says, if both sides are reasonable enough to adhere to that insane treaty, then they have a really easy shot at having peace.
Okay.
But reasonable people don't kill each other virtually for 500 years.
Right. Okay. When Spock is talking to Scotty over the communicators, there's a new bit. I always love pointing out the cinematography on the show when they do something fun or different. There's a new bit of cinematography I'm referring to as the extreme pushing. That's so nice. They did it twice. Like they do it the one time on Spock, and then they do it again. No, I think they do it on Scotty first, and then they do it on Spock, and it's a little bit slower. It's very funny. Poppin J Fox must be Scottish for this guy sure sucks. I love it when they leave the room and Spock's like, prevent this woman from emulating herself. If you have to sit on her by any means necessary. And I love that the new Yao Min's attempt to look tough. It's like she's like, oh, I'm gonna stop you, woman. Who is
not only that's a segue for another kind of Star Trek movie,
right? And then when Spock blows up the second disintegrator machine, and he's given real DMV energy, and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to need you to go walk that way quickly as you can. Walk, don't run, please. And then, then I took another stab at what I thought was a much more interesting twist of, I thought the people on Vindikar were going to turn out to be dead and that they actually bombed them to death. And the computer was just endlessly running this program, and that it was.
Oh, that would have been. See, when Paramount gives us the green light and the budget to redo the series, that's going to be our twist ending.
What a twist!
Because it actually doesn't mess with the canon of the universe, because this is a one and done episode. We never hear of
I don't think it does.
Vindikar or Eminiar or whatever the number 7 is. We never hear from them again.
No, we never do. So you absolutely could do that. So I thought it was funny how they was like, we tried to shoot you, but he's like, they're like just out of their reach. So it's kind of like someone trying to be like, and I'm like, I'm just like, man, this thing kind of make you guys seem kind of toothless. It's like, we're trying to get you, but they're like just too far.
Well, they do fight a computer war.
But so okay, they're holding them ransom, and I said I do see the hole in this, but I'm gonna say it anyway, that it's not very coldly, it's not a very good deal on the Enterprise's part to trade off 5 people for 500. Like, it's just that more of a like a benefit of them to just kind of let them kill them.
Here's another problem. So no one on the Enterprise need die, because if you recall, Kirk and the landing party were not killed, air quotes, killed in the explosion. It was the Enterprise. However, the Enterprise already survived a blast from the planet's surface. So the Enterprise did not die in their little game of space D&D because they had a hack or something.
I'm guessing that this is probably, well, I guessed it was a bluff, although it didn't. Is General Order 24 a thing, and can the Enterprise blow up a planet?
It doesn't expressly say, although I'm going to go out on a limb and say that is probably not something he can do, but I don't know. It seems legit enough because I was expecting the end of the episode to be something like Scotty being like, "But Captain, General Order 24." It's like, "Yes, Mr. Scott, I felt that a scientific sweep of the planet was an appropriate next action," or something like that.
I would have, my similar vein would have, I was expecting Order 24. Wasn't that lunch you had, Captain? You know, like something like a joke. Like
or
that.
General Order 24 would be like delousing of all the uniforms or something.
Right. Something. Yeah. Cause it's just like Kirk, a lot of Kirk's monologues in this, I think I already said that, make him sound like an insane psychopath where it's like, wait, so Kirk, you're just gonna over the lives of like 6 people, like genocide a whole planet.
Well, to be fair, one of those lives is his.
True. But I still kind of really maintain the point of, so you're going to genocide a whole planet? That seems a little dark for you. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I mean, this is kind of the Star Trek version of fuck around and find out.
I suppose. Also, the chair he's sitting in, is that a 1960s office chair?
It is.
It is a 1960s office chair. That's how it looks, so archaic and old. I was like, that thing doesn't look comfortable. Has no one, literally anyone involved in this conflict, attempted to try to talk to the other planet? Why did the Federation not attempt to talk to the other planet? Why is there one diplomat talking to one planet? Why isn't there also a second diplomat talking to the other planet? This feels like a really flawed diplomatic mission, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but it's established that these people are not reasonable, which if they were reasonable, they wouldn't have had a 500 war in the first place.
Yeah, but wait, but see, my thing is they establish these people as not being reasonable, but do they establish that the other people are also not reasonable?
Well, no, actually, they establish that the other people are reasonable, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if you as a society, planet, nation, whatever form your society takes, if you willingly agree to a treaty in which a computer bomb then forces you to consensually kill your own citizens in the name of non-escalation of a war, you're not warring properly.
Well, my thing is like, this feels like a conflict that really easily could have been resolved.
That's my point. Yeah,
like prior to like Kirk's threat of planetary genocide. Like, it just feels like that extra additional, like, I'm not talking within the context of the episode. I understand the episode. I just mean within the context of this universe. It feels like an unnecessary, this war seems like it could have been solved 499 years ago, I guess.
Well, no, that's my point, is it's like it
500 years is a lot.
I find it really hard to believe that of 2 planets warring with each other, no one in 500 years said, you know, it'd be easier to just not do this. Like the whole logic of this treaty is that we don't want the war to escalate, but they never think about how to de-escalate the war further.
When we do this, well, okay, I would pitch to you one of 2 ideas. When we do this, either do we see the other planet or do we still not see the other planet?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Because I would maybe consider adding an additional character who's profiting from the war.
Yeah, that would make it. That would certainly explain the absurdity of all this.
There's a rich family that wants they're making money off the disintegrating people or something. Like, because otherwise, like, there's no reason there doesn't seem to be a justifiable reason in the narrative for this war to have continued on. This is another example of, like, they just threw a year that sounded really big, but when you like think about it for 2 seconds, doesn't make any sense. It's one of those. I think they call it refrigerator logic.
Yeah, it's right up there with the Chewbacca defense, but Kirk suggests that Anon 7 call a ceasefire and begin peace negotiations, and Fox agrees to act as a neutral mediator because, by golly, there's going to be diplomatic relations established.
He sure seems like the guy qualified to do this.
Well, he's about as smart as they are, so at least there's common ground.
I just when I watched it this time, I have a note that just says, "Oh my God, he blinks so much when he talks."
No, I just imagine those peace negotiations start with like Fox sitting him down at the table. It's like, hey, fellas, call me crazy. How about, just for laughs, we stop killing each other?
How about, and hear me out on this one, we don't. Eh?
We just stop doing this.
Why don't we just stop it? You ever thought of that?
That's what I keep saying, though, is whenever anybody's talking about politics or even in, science fiction, fictional accounts, is yes, it's very easy to negotiate with a reasonable party. But if you're talking to a reasonable party, you're probably not, the likelihood of you being in a significant conflict is immediately lowered because you're dealing with a reasonable person or people.
I feel like this episode maybe would have benefited from an additional character on the other planet, like their version of an On-7 to counterbalance like why this is going on. Because you're right, like that's a note I have twice of like, why has nobody involved in this diplomatic situation talking to the other planet? Like, why is Fox not like, hey, why don't we talk to the other planet? Like, no one suggests involving them until the very end.
Right.
Like, they don't even know that this conflict is happening with the Enterprise.
Right. Yeah, they have no idea. So how would they even know? Well, I guess in their computer simulation they attack the ship. So I guess they do.
Their computer, I guess, notifies them that their numbers are being. They see it like the key. I mean, it's basically described as being like a quota. They're not hitting their quota, and the other side can see that. And that's where that's their version of a ceasefire, I guess.
But yes, so ends A Taste of Armageddon, and I'll be honest, I didn't like the taste. I like the episode.
I just another one of those, like the logic's falling apart, and also I didn't like Kirk. Yeah, letting them just potentially fight it out, not knowing if it's going to work out, is a very odd sort of take. I don't know if that's the right word, but a sentiment to have during the Cold War of like, I don't think you really want these two forces to just fight it out like that. Just the idea that they're like, I don't know if that would have been perceived at the time of like, just let America and Russia.
Well, no, that was actually the argument at the time, was mutually assured destruction breeds peace. So this is very much Cold War sentiment.
Interesting. Yeah, it reads that way, and I thought that was
one
of those episodes that was fascinating.
I mean, this is in the middle of the Cold War, like
right.
You're smack dab in the heat of it.
So my final note on the episode is just that weird musical sting to end on. It was like way too chipper for what had just transpired.
Well, I mean, it is kind of an odd choice. I don't like how open. Well, I guess it makes sense why they left it open ended, because they're in the thick of it. This is not history for them. This is current events.
It just bothers me that they never say whether or not the Enterprise actually could have blown up the planet, because that just seems like, okay, if the Enterprise has the capability of planetary destruction, that kind of like cuts a lot of tension in terms of like fighting other spaceships.
I don't think it can destroy a planet. It's certainly not quickly. I think technically you could bombard the surface of a planet with a starship, but I think that would be real slow going.
Like, again, not that I'm criticizing a several decade old show, but just like, that's my one narrative, like, for what, line in the sand of like, just wish they'd explain whether or not he could actually, maybe they will. Maybe in Star Trek the movie, they'll be like, yeah, he can blow up a planet. And I'll be like, oh, that's a reference back to that thing I said.
Well, you could always do what the Romulans did in the 2009 film. You just drill to the center of the planet and throw red matter in it and cause a black hole. They can kill a planet.
This is true. That is true. So these people never come back. These planets never come back. This conflict never comes back in any.
Not that I'm aware of.
I would definitely bring this back. I will say maybe in another thing. I don't inherently think the concept of like two planets who are having this like cyber, like I say, it reminds me of like I say bad YA novel, but like you can enjoy YA novels. I like YA novels.
Hey, there's some really good ones. Like, for example, just saying, actually, this is a wild example of this. This dude right here.
Oh, that oh my gosh, that is a solid book. Also, it's actually like several dudes who write those books, but that is a solid book.
That's true, yeah. I mean, this whole series is like that, but like, hey, actually, I get a kick out of this because I was obsessed with this series when I was in school and they were new. Like, I remember when it ended. Like, I waited in line to buy that book.
That series gets so dark. I mean, let's talk about David.
This is the biggest, like,
trapping a boy inside the body of a mouse who was evil. Or in fact, I think one of the characters dies. I think.
Oh yeah, and in the last book, spoiler alert. No, this is the biggest hoodwink on parents ever because these. I'm just grabbing one here. These are the book covers. It's like, oh, kids that turn into animals. That seems cool. It gets my kid to read. First book. They're all traumatized. Like not like, oh, that was rough. No, legitimate trauma.
Yeah,
and it only gets worse.
The mechanic of turning into animals in the book is almost like described as like a body horror kind of experience. Like
it is.
Yeah. Like your whole body is changing. It's not a pleasant thing. Yeah, I know.
Well, Jordan, and they allude to. I love them, dude. But they allude to I think it's in the first book. They allude to the fact that they can feel it happening, but the morphing technology dulls the pain of it happening. So it doesn't hurt, but you feel it. And I can imagine that would be, but this one, oh boy, let me tell you about this one.
That one's really good.
Literal genocide.
I used to own that one actually. I think doesn't that one shake out? It's like Alien Romeo and Juliet almost.
Kinda, sorta. I prefer. I think Tristan and Isolde is a little bit more accurate.
Oh yeah,
because there's an actual war that takes place, but it's not started by them, but it kind of happens because of them in a way. It's complicated. It's not like it's a YA series, but it is very like I still enjoy reading the books. It's just the prose is very YA, but the story itself, like I still maintain if they remade this series because they did a series on Nickelodeon years ago, if they redid this as like a TVMA.
Wait, are you referring to the Canadian show that was on YTV?
Well, Nickelodeon here, but yes.
I know. I'm just being facetious. Yeah. With I think Sean
Astin. Sean Ashmore, not Sean Astin. Yeah. Different Sean. Equally delightful, but different Sean. Yeah, Sean Ashmore.
It's a fun fact about I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I've met their mother. I at the theater I worked at in from Canada in Richmond. Their mother was a regular customer who used to come in all the time. And I met her a few times. And one day my friend, who was my boss at the time, was like, that's Sean and Aaron Ashmore's mother. And I was like, what?
But alas, we have reached the end of this episode of Star Trek. Justin, per our tradition, would you like to take a stab at our next week's episode, which is entitled This Side of Paradise?
Oh, this side. Okay. So I'm guessing the Enterprise crew, they're on some form of shore leave. They're on some sort of vacation and something goes awry. There's a mystery. Someone gets killed. Maybe it's a red shirt. Hopefully it's a red shirt. And there's a mystery. We got to figure out who the killer is. And so the rough side of the paradise is that there's a sinister side to paradise.
You're not 100% there, but I'm going to give that to you. You're very close. Yeah. You're like 90% there. But fun fact, Sulu is exposed to another mind-altering substance.
Oh, Sulu's back. Yeah, I've been missing Sulu. I'm guessing what's his face? George Takei's off filming something. I'm guessing that's why he hasn't been around.
Maybe, or some of these, depending on their contracts, they were contracted for a certain number of episodes. So could have just been
Sulu's back. I'm excited.
But yes, and our red shirt tally still remains at 3. But I have a feeling next week. That's going to change. I think that's going to change.
I thought for sure those guys looked so expendable. I thought for sure we were going to lose at least one of them.
So subscribe to Paramount Plus, subscribe to The Final Frontier, like, share, tell your friends, and watch long and prosper.
Watch long and prosper. Cue the clips from the next episode. Is the Omicron Ceti 1 related to Omicron Persei 8? Which, as we all know, is very different from Omicron Persei 9.
Yeah, there's a bit of it feels kind of like spooge.
I wonder how many of these oddly specific insults he actually believes. Like, Vulcans are all a bunch of disloyal traitors. Feels like a very specific kind of racism.